The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
We've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping, and it's stopping, and there's no plan for executions.
The Middle East remains on high alert. Why ending protester crackdown might not save Iran from U.S. military response.
The president has made his view clear, and we have a different position.
What came out of a meeting today between Danish, Greenlandic, and American officials as President Trump continues his quest to take over Greenland? Plus, as investigations into widespread Minnesota fraud mount, the staggering amount of money the U.S. believes may have been defrauded from the country in the last 20 years. Good evening. I'm Taylor Murray. Welcome to the National News Desk, America's News Now. President Trump today said he has been informed the Islamic regime has called off executions of protesters, but did not say if the threat of military action was over. The Middle East, of course, is on high alert as the United States has started to evacuate citizens from Middle East military bases. Joining us now is national correspondent Kayla Gaskins with the latest from Washington.
Iran issuing a new threat Wednesday. Iranian state TV broadcasting a picture of the 2024 assassination attempt on President Trump with the caption, "This time, it will not miss the target." This comes as horrific news and images continue pouring out of Iran, despite the government's attempt to create a communication blackout. The regime resorting to a violent crackdown on protesters as those in control desperately try to hold on to power. The death toll surpassing 2,500 as of Wednesday. It continues to climb. A doctor who just escaped the country sharing his account with CNN.
I got a call from the hospital. "Doctor, come. You must come." When I arrived, I saw what we call a mass casualty situation.
President Trump warned Iranian officials against harming the protesters and appears resolved to keep that promise. In the Oval Office Wednesday afternoon, Trump said he's heard from a credible source the killings have stopped.
We've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping, and it's stopped. So I've been told that a good authority. We'll find out about it.
Trump still not taking military action off the table. Evacuations of personnel have begun at the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the largest U.S. base in the region. The base was targeted by Iran in June after the U.S. struck Iran's nuclear facilities.
What's the end game?
The end game is to win. I like winning.
How do you define that in Iran?
Well, let's define it in Venezuela. Let's define it with al-Baghdadi.
Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Oman are now pushing diplomatic efforts to ease tensions, and with Arab leaders warning a military strike could backfire, uniting Iranians across political lines and strengthening the regime.
Now, Kayla, there's been dispute on the actual death toll, with some saying it's much higher than 2,500. So what can you tell us about that?
Taylor, Iran's government has done everything they can to stop the flow of information within the country, but also in and out of the country. So getting an estimate's been pretty difficult. However, phone lines have started to reopen, and two sources are now telling CBS News that at least 12,000, maybe even as many as 20,000 people have been killed. Those numbers, though, have not yet been independently verified.
Wow. In Washington, D.C., Kayla Gaskins, thank you. Well, yesterday, the Pentagon confirmed U.S. forces conducted a series of airstrikes against terrorists in Africa. U.S. Africa Command said the strikes were against al-Shabaab, which is an al-Qaeda affiliate, and it's operating in Somalia. The Pentagon said the terrorist group puts troops, U.S. citizens living abroad, and national security at risk. The foreign ministers of Greenland and Denmark say they had a constructive meeting at the White House today, but differences remain over Greenland's future. Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with the leaders discussing President Trump's interest in taking over the Arctic island. The foreign minister of Denmark notes there's clearly still a disagreement.
We agreed that it makes sense to try to sit down on a high level to explore whether there is possibilities to accommodate the concerns of the president, while we at the same time respect the red lines of the Kingdom of Denmark.
Greenland is a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark, a NATO ally. President Trump says it is necessary for the U.S. to acquire the island for national security. Greenland's foreign minister said the island wants to strengthen its cooperation with the United States, but emphasized that does not mean Greenland wants to be owned by the U.S. Well, more than half of Americans say they oppose the United States attempting to buy Greenland. That's according to a new Quinnipiac University poll out today. Get this, 37% say they support it. But when asked should the U.S. take Greenland by force, American support dips to just 9%. 86%, including more than 9 out of 10 Democrats and independents, oppose that idea. In other news now, in Minnesota, Judge Catherine Menendez has denied the state's request for a temporary restraining order against ICE operations for now, as she seeks more evidence before making a ruling. State Attorney General Keith Ellison and local officials have called the surge of ICE and Border Patrol agents an unlawful invasion. Judge Menendez says she wants to give the federal government time to properly reply, so a final decision could come by the end of the month. In the meantime, White House Border Czar Tom Homan says the surges of federal agents will continue.
They can protest all they want. We're just going to double down and enforce the law. And I said for months, we're going to surge resources in sanctuary cities because that's where the problem is. We know they're releasing public safety threats. We're going to send the agents where we know the biggest problem is.
Also today, President Trump doubling down on his threat to sanctuary cities, writing this on his Truth Social, quote, effective February 1st, no more payments will be made by the federal government to states for their corrupt criminal protection centers, which are known as sanctuary cities. Roughly 12 states and several large cities like Chicago, New York, Seattle, and San Francisco are included under that designation. Now, we are also learning that ICE agent Jonathan Ross, the officer who fired the fatal shots that killed protester Renee Good, was treated in the hospital for internal bleeding in his torso. We do not know how extensive that bleeding was or if there are further complications. Immigrant visas for citizens from 75 countries, including Afghanistan, Iran, Russia, and Somalia, are being suspended. This is starting January 21st. The State Department says these suspensions are for countries whose citizens are deemed likely to require public assistance while living in the U.S. This does not apply to people seeking non-immigrant visas or temporary tourist visas. Taking a look now at the High Court. The Supreme Court releasing 3 decisions today, but the highly anticipated ruling on President Trump's tariffs was not one of them. The president says if the court does not allow the tariffs to stay in place, the United States will be out hundreds of billions of dollars. Again, the justices have not indicated when their next day of decisions will be. But of the cases the justices did decide, one could open the floodgates for other lawsuits challenging mail-in ballots. The court decided Congressman Michael Bost has standing to sue over mail-in ballots being counted after Election Day. Liberal Judge Elena Kagan joined the conservative majority, but Justices Sotomayor and Ketanji Jackson dissented to the opinion of the court.
Political people, both Republicans and Democrats, because they like whole milk. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, whole milk is, right? That's a great thing.
You see him there this afternoon, President Trump signing the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act from the Oval Office. It's a bipartisan legislation that requires the National School Lunch Program to include whole milk and 2% milk. It reverses Obama-era nutrition rules that restricted school milk options to fat-free or low-fat varieties.
This is the first bill signing of the new year, and it will ensure that millions of school-age children have access to high-quality milk as we make America healthy again.
The USDA says they're ready to post that new guidance today, and Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins says whole milk will begin moving back into schools within a few weeks. A health alert now. Measles cases surge in South Carolina as an outbreak continues to grow. Officials say at least 124 new cases have been reported since Friday, bringing the total to 434 cases. 400 patients are in quarantine, and the state has been dealing with that outbreak since October. According to the CDC, in 2025, the U.S. recorded over 2,000 measles cases, the most since 1992. This week, the FBI searched a Washington Post reporter's home for classified information. According to that newspaper, agents took a phone, laptops, and a watch from Hannah Nathanson's Virginia residence. Well, today on X, Attorney General Pam Bondi said a search warrant was executed because a Pentagon contractor was leaking information to a journalist, and the leaker is now behind bars. Orela Perez Lagones was charged last week for alleged illegal retention of national defense information. This is according to an FBI affidavit. Police in Ohio are providing more details today in the double murder of a dentist and his wife who were found shot dead in their home in December. The deaths of Spencer and Monique Tepe have sparked national interest as authorities spent more than a week searching for a suspect. The manhunt led police to Monique's ex-husband's home, Michael McKee. Investigators say a vehicle belonging to McKee was caught on surveillance, driving to and from the scene of the crime the night of the murders.
Detectives were able to link this vehicle to McKee. The vehicle was located in Rockford, Illinois, and evidence was found that showed McKee in possession of the vehicle before and after the homicides.
That was Columbus Police Chief Elaine Bryant, who says detectives also recovered what they believe is the murder weapon following the search of McKee's home. Prosecutors have charged McKee with premeditated aggravated murder, which in Ohio carries a maximum penalty of life in prison or the death penalty.
Bill Clinton's trying to play the victim card here. Only Bill Clinton could try to triangulate something that's happened, a terrible atrocity to these survivors that have had to endure who knows what from Epstein and Maxwell.
House Oversight Committee Republicans are moving forward with criminal contempt of Congress charges after former Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton refused to sit for depositions related to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Now, Chairman James Comer, who you just heard from, says he's investigating if Epstein helped to raise money for the Clinton Foundation. The Clintons argued in a statement yesterday that the committee's subpoenas are legally invalid, they say. On the House floor, members passed a funding package appropriating money for Treasury and State Departments. These bills will soon be taken up by the Senate. A vote on appropriations for Homeland Security was pulled due to the political nature of the timing. A new bill for DHS, as well as funding for the Pentagon, Transportation, and Housing Department, is expected next week. Congress has until January 30th to pass all appropriations or face another partial government shutdown. Coming up, hundreds of millions of dollars sent overseas in suitcases with new questions about where the money came from. Now, one key senator wants to know if any of that money is tied to Minnesota's fraud scandal. Then what new data on America's economy shows about people's appetite for spending. Plus, how law enforcement officers from across the state of Texas honored a fallen deputy. We'll be right back. New developments tonight in Minnesota's $9 billion social services fraud scandal. A newly released video describes another example of alleged fraud in Minnesota's Somali community. Take a look.
When a Somali goes to the doctor, magically, they forgot how to speak English. The county brings in an interpreter at $100 an hour, minimum 8 hours.
Conservative YouTuber Nick Shirley's last video from December focused on alleged childcare fraud.
So this is Quality Learning Center. I meant to say Quality Learning Center.
But a whistleblower now alleging that the fraud, which some estimate has cost taxpayers $9 billion, is a deeply elaborate scheme.
So basically what we're talking about between all these fraudulent businesses, the daycare, the autism centers, the adult daycare, the home services, and then the transportation. And then on top of that, you have it looped in with them going eventually to the doctors for translators to be paid by the state.
That's exactly what's happening, yes.
Shirley's December video led to Democratic Governor Tim Walz ending his re-election campaign and national scrutiny of the Minnesota scandal. Critics point out the fraud has been going on for a decade.
Because the Somali population is such a massive voting bloc for the Democrat Party in Minnesota, they've turned a blind eye.
98 have faced federal charges in Minnesota so far. The vast majority, 85, are part of the state's large Somali community. And now new scrutiny on hundreds of millions of dollars that are sent overseas from Somali Americans in the United States.
The reports were $700 million, and they weren't even hiding that they were sending it back.
Just the News reporting that in 2024 and 2025, Somali couriers moved $700 million out of Minneapolis overseas to Amsterdam and Dubai when the TSA then lost track of the cash. The money movements are legally registered with the federal government and have been going on for years. This Minneapolis TV station reported on it in 2018. But it's the massive amounts that are moved that have some wondering whether any of this money was obtained through fraud.
This is an insane amount of money to send back to Somalia.
But this is also the gall. You're stealing welfare money and you're taking it out of the country, and you are so in the belief that you won't get caught.
Now, Senator Paul says he's now launching an investigation into how much money is leaving the U.S. this way and which countries it's going to. Well, the Treasury Department and Department of Justice are both investigating fraud on a nationwide scale now. Our fact-check team is taking a look at just how much money has been defrauded from the American public.
A new report from the Government Accountability Office warns the federal government is losing hundreds of billions of dollars a year to fraud and improper payments, and says artificial intelligence won't fix it without some basic changes first. Let's go to Emma Withrow from the Fact Check team. And first and foremost, we got to talk about, obviously, what exactly are the loss estimates?
Yeah, so the the GAO estimates that the federal government loses between $233 and $521 billion every year to fraud, based on some data from 2018 through 2022. Now, on top of that, improper payments, which is money that shouldn't have been paid or was paid in the wrong amount, they've totaled about $2.8 trillion since 2003, and just 5 federal programs accounted for the most improper payments.
So moving forward, well, first of all, the report talks a lot about artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Is the GAO saying that AI can actually help with solving this?
So they say that AI can definitely help, but only under specific conditions. So data analytics and AI, they can flag suspicious patterns and process huge amounts of information, but only if agencies have clean, reliable data and humans are reviewing those results. The GAO, though, warns that without those guardrails, AI can actually amplify the errors and bad decisions. Some of the GAO's recommendations are basic and actually don't require AI at all. So, for example, the GAO encourages the Congress to make a permanent requirement that the Social Security Administration shares all the death data with the Treasury's do not pay system to stop payments to dead individuals. Sounds pretty simple.
Yeah, but it doesn't replace humans actually following the money.
Yeah.
Emma, thank you.
Thanks.
For more on this Fact Check topic, including links to their sources, scan the QR code or visit thenationaldesk.com.
Well, retail sales rose modestly in November, according to new Commerce Department data. Sales inched up 0.6% that month. Economists expected an increase of 0.4%. When adjusting for inflation, people still spent more than they did a year prior. Official data, of course, on the economy is still behind due to last year's government shutdown. More retail news here. The parent company Saks Global of luxury retailer Saks Fifth Avenue filed for bankruptcy protection late Tuesday. This marks the first major retailer bankruptcy of the new year. The company had struggled with a heavy debt load following its purchase of rival Neiman Marcus in 2024. Well, phase 2 of the Gaza ceasefire plan has begun. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff announced the update on X today. In phase 2, a technocratic administration will take over authority inside Gaza and begin the demilitarization and reconstruction of the enclave. Israel will also begin a further withdrawal of their forces remaining inside Gaza. Witkoff adds that the U.S. expects Hamas to comply fully with its obligations under the deal, including the immediate return of the final deceased hostage, which was actually part of Phase 1's agreement signed back in October. The suspect in the Gilgo Beach killings will go on trial after Labor Day. The judge said this to the defense and prosecution in a hearing yesterday. Rex Heerman is charged in the deaths of 7 women whose bodies were found on Long Island. Both sides were in court as the defense team filed multiple motions challenging evidence like search warrants in the case. Coming up, a final farewell to a hero in Texas. The celebration of life for a Texas deputy when we come back. We have reporters all across the country and your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We're taking the pulse of America, and we start in Texas, where law enforcement officers from across the state gathered to honor a deputy killed.
A man who was described as someone who loved to fish and watch Cowboys football. Many saluted the life Armstrong lived both in the law enforcement community and outside of it. Armstrong was fatally shot back on January 4th while working security off-duty at Club Rodeo in North Austin. After his service, his police honors were highlighted by a flyover. Friend Pierre Hill shared his favorite details about his fallen friend.
Funny, outgoing, like to talk mess a little bit, but he's very humble.
Aaron was more than a badge, more than a uniform. He was a devoted servant to his community and man of faith.
Caldwell's watch began back in 2011 and ended on January 4th, 2026. He was 51 years old.
I would not, I repeat, I would not have put that photo up for anybody to see.
This is the photo posted to Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson's official X account at an anti-ICE rally at Cal Anderson Park Sunday. The image shows the mayor posing with 2 individuals, one of whom is holding a sign with a small sticker in the corner that reads, "Nazis own flammable cars." Como political analyst Ron Dotzauer calls it a political mistake.
It doesn't matter what your politics are. If you're on the left, if you're on the right, if you're a moderate, whoever you are, being associated with a photo that has the word Nazi in it, no matter what your intent is a bad idea.
And I know the mayor's office told me in an email, our city is facing an affordability crisis. Thousands of homeless people are living outside, and our civil rights are under attack. That's what the mayor is spending her time on, not commenting on a blurry sticker on the edge of a social media post.
We are seeing high activity of people getting sick with the flu.
Weber and Morney counties are seeing a spike in flu cases.
It's pretty typical for us to see a surge right between Thanksgiving and Christmas and then carrying through to mid-January.
Dr. Jason, an ER physician with Common Spirit Holy Cross Hospital, says the case numbers also point to higher hospitalizations.
Because the more cases that we see, the more on average we'll have hospitalizations from this virus.
Amy Carter with the Weber-Morgan Public Health Department.
Right now in Weber and Morgan areas, we're seeing about 7%, a little over 7% of like our emergency room and urgent care visits being due to influenza.
The first week of January, that number was nearly at 10%.
So we know that's coming down. Hopefully that will stay down, but that number's still higher than we want it to be.
But Carter says along with flu cases, hospitals are dealing with other respiratory illnesses.
There's more demand and more burden on our hospitals, right? There's less open beds for if we have people who have a trauma or a vehicle accident or other reasons.
Coming up, now's your chance to get a ticket to the 2028 Olympic Games in Los Angeles. We'll explain how right after this. Attendees of next Monday night's College Football National Championship in Miami can expect even tighter security getting into the game. President Donald Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio plan to be there to watch the Miami Hurricanes take on #1 and undefeated Indiana Hoosiers. The game is scheduled to begin at 7:30 p.m. on the 19th at Hard Rock Stadium and the home of the Hurricanes. All right, well, registration is now open for the ticket draw for the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. Look at this. To enter, go to la28.org. You'll then get an email saying if you've been assigned a time slot to buy a ticket. This first registration period runs through March 18th. LA28 says it is releasing 14 million tickets, and the July 2028 games will be the largest in history with over 11,000 athletes. All right, that does it for this edition of the National News Desk. Join us again this evening as we dig into the rise in ICE monitoring services and the possible connection to dangerous rhetoric from politicians and from lawmakers. I'm Taylor Murray. Thanks for watching.